All right, we are live in the Google Hangout. So this is a Hangout to talk about the rise of the Europan. We're going ahead and recording it. We have Dawn and Eugene, who are not with us here tonight. We want to make it available for them and also for anybody else who might decide that they want to participate in the project. I want to talk about a couple of things tonight. I want to talk about what actually happens at Dryden as we get close to publishing a book, and what it will look like as we get close to publishing this book. Also I want to talk about the stories that people are looking at, and if we feel like we want to try to recruit some other stories, or if we like where we're going, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But first of all, I kind of like for folks to talk about themselves and get to know each other. That's going to be a little difficult for Damien because he's typing text into me, and then I'll repeat it back. But I think Damien is a person of few words and short sentences, just because he has to be. Huh. So, hey, it's nice to meet you, Damien. I'm going to start off by mocking you. So, Damien, why don't you maybe type a thing or two that you would like just to share briefly about yourself? And while we're doing that, Kitty, do you want to maybe introduce yourself a little bit and your interest in this project?
Yeah, sure. I'm Kitty Sarkozy. I'm a science fiction, fantasy, and horror writer. I have a couple short stories out. I have a collection on Amazon. And I saw about this on, it was on Facebook, on an open call group for science fiction writers. And it just sounded fascinating to me, having this open world that everybody can read and take from and grow, and I just loved it. And I read Joel's book, and it was awesome. And I talked to Joel and Tracy, and I'm writing a story. I don't know how long it's going to be. I'm writing a thing, and that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome, very good. Having read Kitty's work, I have to say that I really enjoy the sort of humanity of the work. You really feel like you're listening to real people have real conversations, and there's a kind of an honesty to Kitty's work that I really enjoy. So, Damien, things you would like for us to know about yourself? Now we all wait with bated breath. Here we go. Damien's writing us. Can you guys see the group chat?
I can.
Yeah.
Okay. So I need to reread that to you. And Damien, I'm trying to remember. Did I read a sample of your work? I kind of think that I haven't had a sample from you yet. Am I lost there? I know I read Eugene's the other day, and I think that you were looking for someone to co-write with last time you and I talked. Is that accurate, or have I lost track of something? There you go. Well, let's plan on having you send me that when we get to the end of tonight's conversation. So I'm going to give just a little bit of a description of what's going on with the rise of the Europan from Boston, Massachusetts. Very cool. Then we can talk a little bit about story content that we've seen so far, and kind of maybe work a little bit on deciding what content we're going to have. We're kind of down two of our authors, and that's going to slow us down. Oh, and Tracy, I should have you introduce yourself. I'm so used to being in meetings with Tracy, I forget. Tracy actually works for me as an editor, and so I just assume that everybody knows Tracy because I do. Tracy, why don't you introduce yourself while I sit around and feel like a heel?
My name is Tracy Vincent, and I'm from Kentucky, and essentially I started off as a book blogger. And I still blog about book reviews. I love reading. And so Joel, I reviewed a couple of his books, and he thought maybe if he would hire me, I would talk better about his stuff.
You kept giving me these terrible reviews. Oh, my God.
They were not terrible.
Well, they were great
Had good
reviews, but she
reviews.
didn't just sit around and talk about how wonderful I was. It was very sad.
Well, sorry. I didn't know I was supposed to do that. I thought I was supposed to give an honest review. But anyhow, that aside, he hired me, and now I edit for Dryden House. And let's see, I have done a book cover already.
Yeah. Yep.
So I wear many hats at Dryden House. And
Yep.
I'm writing a story for this bride too.
Ooh, awesome.
Brides of the Europan.
Very cool. Very cool. So I want to talk about just kind of what we're looking for, or what we're going to do in terms of actually bringing this book to print. You know, Gavin gave us that sample cover art. I don't know if you've all seen it. I see Kitty nodding affirmatively, and I just love that cover art. And I think that that's probably the cover art that we'll end up using. And Damien, very good. Also, awesome. I don't know anything about the fonts that'll go on it or anything like that. I also hired Gavin, by the way. He's now the artistic director for the Dryden House. Don Van Osdal's with us. What's going on, Don?
Oh, not much.
Hey, Don, we are just finishing introductions and about to start talking about the book, so why don't you go ahead and just take a minute and tell us who you are and how you're participating in Rise of the Europan.
Well, I'm Don Van Osdal, and I've got a short story on one of the events that serves to anger the Europan.
Very good, very good. And I don't think that I've seen full text of that, but I think that I've seen a description of the story. Is that's accurate?
Correct.
Okay. Very good. So what we're doing, Dawn, is we've got Damien Rocha with us, we've got Kitty Sarkozy with us, and we've got Tracy with us, all of whom are writing stories. The only person who's writing who hasn't shown up yet this evening is Eugene Kelly, and then Damien is with us, but is having trouble with the voice, and so he's participating via chat over on the side of the screen, so you might just kind of keep your eyes open because Damien's not as noisy as the rest of us this evening. So in terms of a book, the initial impulse to write this book was to correct an issue. I took a short story out of our universe that I had written because I found out that some other folks also had rights to it, or I finally sort of processed that they had rights. I knew that. And they were non-exclusive rights, but I just didn't want a corporation or a company, one of them was a pretty big company, to be able to come in and mess around with our stuff. You know, sooner or later we'll get big enough that larger companies will start using our universe also, but I didn't want to help them because I'm not a big fan of big companies. So I pulled that story out, and it was the story of the Europans' decision to attack the humans. And so one of the things that just really, really impresses me every time I look at something that was written by somebody in Dryden, I read the first half of Dan Hunt's new book today, speaking of such things, really great work, is the amazing diversity. We have this really diverse talent pool with a lot of different visions of what fiction should look like and how it should work. And I decided that what I would like to do is just say, okay, everybody, let's write this story, and then never really explain it, and let the different voices and the different images of the future sort of coexist in an almost nonlinear fashion. You know, Eugene's story that he's writing is very Cthulhu. He has a very dark vision of the Europan, and I'm not going to try to fix that to match with the much friendlier, gentler versions presented by Dawn and Tracy, for example, because what I really want to tell the story of is the amazing talent that we've got here in Dryden, and this story collection is a vehicle for it. I've talked before, I'm sure you guys have seen the video about the short story collection that I read where they built this fantasy city and then turned a bunch of authors loose in it and never reconciled the stories. And I really enjoyed that, and so that's the idea here. I would like to publish in 2015, but that's really about as tight as I get, and if we just don't make that date, we don't. We could publish as early, I think, as November, but I think it's more likely by the time we actually proofread everything and talk back and forth and set up promotional materials that we're probably looking at a December date. But I would like, if we can do it, to go ahead and push it out in 2015. Just to make sure that I've been explicit, the contract that Dryden uses is the very simplest contract that we can possibly get away with. We take whatever the net profit is after manufacturer costs, and we split it 50% to Dryden and 50% to the authors. And so we'll smooth divide. We don't do word counts or anything like that. If there are 5 authors with short stories in the collection, then we'll split that money 5 ways. If there are 4, we'll split it 4 ways, et cetera, et cetera. And that's our contract. That covers everything we do, print version and EPUB version. We've started using Smashwords for EPUB versions of books because they let us use a whole lot of different formats. We're not just constrained to the Kindle format or the Kobo format or whoever. We put it in Smashwords and put it out in all of them. Our plan is to give it sort of Tracy's full treatment and do a cover reveal and advance copies to bloggers and so on and so forth, so that we don't just hit the market cold. I don't have a sense of what that does in terms of sales because we are currently in process of doing that for Lorelei You'll Never Die, which is the first book that we've given the full treatment to. So I don't really know what I mean when I say we're not hitting the market cold, but we're not hitting the market cold. We'll hit the market as hot as we can. We'll probably also do an exclusive content version for Boom Comics. We have sort of a special relationship with them, and they have committed to putting everything that we give them an exclusive version of on their revised website as purchasable worldwide. So you'll be able to get a copy of the exclusive version of your book. It won't be available through Amazon or anything, but you will be able to get a copy of it through Boom. And we'll figure out some sort of author's cost version. We won't make you pay the full Boom cost version, but maybe your auntie will have to pay full price, and sorry about that. So that's the sort of technical stuff. The only other real sort of technical thing I have, I guess I should say, we almost always print in the 6x9 format. It's kind of a big, easy to read format. We could go with sort of standard novel size, which I think is 5x7. Something I don't even remember anymore. But I prefer the 6x9 because it's big and it's comfortable and it's really cheap to manufacture with the perfect binding, with a glue binding that doesn't just want to break the first time you open it. And I appreciate that. So pretty much I go with the standard 6x9 unless I need to change sizes for some reason. Big Damn Dryden, the role-playing game we're coming out with, we're going to do at 8.5x11 because it's a rule book. But otherwise, 6x9 is what I anticipate for Rise of the Europan. And I don't want to try to publish less than 35,000 words, or I'm sorry, less than 45,000 words. And the reason for that is just that 45,000 words is sort of the de facto minimum length for a conventional novel. And I don't want to try to charge somebody, $9 or $11 for a paperback book that's shorter than that. I don't feel like I'm delivering good quality, or good product for value at shorter than that. Which, if you divide that out among 5 authors, that actually works out to less than 10,000 words an author. Now we can go longer, if we get 5 authors and they all turn in 12 or 15,000 word stories, then we'll publish a 50 or 60,000 word book. I don't have a problem with that. We wouldn't start having issues with manufacturing costs until we were over 100,000 words. So, we're not gonna write a Stephen King length story. So, that's pretty much my spiel. Do people have questions about that?
I'm good.
Oh, good. How do you feel, Damien? You want to give me a thumbs up or some sort of sign on chat that we're doing well? Sounds good to him. All right, very good. So then the next thing that I want to do that I think is actually sort of the most important part is kind of get a conversation going amongst you, that really you're free to take the lead in terms of talking about the stories that you want to write or are writing. I've said that I'm not going to relate those stories and that we don't need a single through line, but at the same time I kind of like for you guys to be excited about what each other are doing. The Dryden experiment lives on cooperation, and I would hate to put 5 stories by 5 people who've never talked to each other into a book and tell them it was cohesive. So, Tracy, why don't we start with you? I've read your story, and I kind of know where you are. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what makes your story work and what it's about?
Well, my story does not occur on Europa at all. It actually occurs on a nearby planet, from another store. And the Europan had for we really don't know how long, but the Europan had been sending little bits of itself out into space to see if it could find some place that it could actually thrive on. And Joel calls that panspermia. And I had never heard of it before. I was just like, wouldn't that be kind of neat? Anyway, my story actually involves a woman named Sadie, and she's known as Insane Sadie because of the voices she hears in her head. Well, that's actually kind of convenient because the voice is actually the Europan. Because when she was born in her placental sac, and she was born in the oceans of Aurelia, which is the name of the planet. And so when her mother tears the sac open and it's flooded with the ocean's water, she inhales her first breath, which just so happens to involve a little tiny bit of the Europan. And it took into her DNA and became part of her. So all of the communication that the Europan gives to all the little bits, parts, pieces that it creates, it also communicates with her as well. And just so happens, the Europan warns her that, all kinds is going to break loose and strikes a deal pretty much that she can get people off the planet in a way, then she can get the people off the planet in a way. And it won't try to, kill them or anything like that. And so that's the story.
Very good. And in my imagination, knowing that everyone else is writing, or at least the stories I know are actually happening on Europa, that's probably going to end up kind of being the tag story. The Europan has gotten out into space. He's gotten beyond just our solar system. But he is willing to let Sadie rescue the people on this planet. So just to expand a little bit more on the idea of the Europan and panspermia, the Europan actually communicates across space using a technology that's maybe similar to the one that Il Solitaire uses, that is faster than light, and humans just don't know that it's out there. Gavin Revitt got working with the Il Solitaire and working on the idea that the faster than light ripples that humans use to transport around in space, the Europans or the Il Solitaire could actually be singing. They're flying space whales, of course. And so the idea that there are faster than light communication methods out there, the humans just don't know them, has been incorporated into the universe. And so when Tracy asked me if she thought that Sadie could be communicating with the Europan, I said absolutely. And then the idea of panspermia, for those of you who may not have encountered it before, is the idea that if life evolved on one planet anywhere in the galaxy, sooner or later it would spread to the rest of the galaxy. And the theory is that meteor strikes and comet strikes throw organic material off of Earth all the time, and that material over the course of literally hundreds of thousands or millions of years will sneak its way around the galaxy. Well, Tracy's idea was that the Europan had been doing this on purpose, sending out its genetic material out into space, or whatever its equivalent of genetic material, and that the Europan has actually colonized at least a couple of planets around space near Earth, and we just don't realize that they're Europan colonized planets. The humans don't. It just looks like other water worlds that have evolved their own life. Well, the Europan is actually in communication with these planets and knows that they're out there, so once he escapes Earth, he has other planets that he wants to go rescue from the humans, which is what happens then with Sadie. So that's the evolution that went on in our universe to sort of facilitate this story. All right, Don, why don't we hop over to you? I know a little bit about your story. Why don't you share where you are?
All right. Well, mine also centers around a girl who can communicate with the Europan, or at least one of its extensions, rather than a psychic connection. Though theirs is a version of sign language.
Okay.
Um, they actually the creature has a sort of very flexible tail, almost like a jellyfish.
Okay. And Damien, I see
And
you typing. Just keep going, and we'll switch over to your story when Don's done. But please go ahead and keep typing. I'm sorry, Don. Go ahead.
and it the girl uses her ponytail as to simulate the language that they've developed between each other.
Oh, that's a very cool idea. So she's sort of got a pattern to the way she moves her tail, and that mimics the pattern of the Europan creature.
And they use this little tail language to communicate.
Awesome. I like it. And I understand that the Europan gets upset about this because the creature begins listening to her rather than to the Europan.
Yeah, it gets hungry and says, "Come here, and I'm going to eat you." And the creature informs the little girl that it's going to go get eaten, and she talks it out of going.
And
And
then,
it
go ahead.
doesn't like not it, coming to hunt food. It's been more or less laying there and having food come to it, and it's been doing this for a long, long time now.
Right.
I don't got to do anything. The food comes to me when I say, "Come, I'm going to eat you." It goes, "Well, this said no." I'm not,
Okay.
and so it initiates an attack against the girl, and this precipitates a whole range of events that eventually ends up with the girl's mother, uh, driving a spaceship into a cooling vent for one of the nuclear plants on Europa.
She's going to end up diving a spaceship into a cooling vent on a nuclear plant?
Yes.
Okay.
Which, nuclear blast on Europa is not what the Europan wants.
Right. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. So I sort of in my head thinking about the evolution of story. I think or the layout of the book. This is probably an early story. By Tracy's story, the Europan is off Earth, and this story seems to be before the fight really breaks out, or maybe sort of the opening salvos of the fight. Damien, you've written that your story is the Battle of Europa. So are we talking Geist Marines versus the Europan, the sort of pitched battle in the middle? Ah, here it comes. Okay. I'm just going to let everybody read for a moment. All right. Sounds very good. Very promising.
Yeah.
And I'll just well, let's have Kitty. You want to talk about your vision, and then I'll talk a little bit about what Eugene has sent me.
I do not even know. I'm going to write a story, but I don't even know what I want to do yet. I was thinking about something having to do. I was reading that on Europa, the higher up you are in a building, the less affluent you are. So the poor people, the kind of homeless people, are living near the tops of the building.
Yes, that was Dawn. Dawn made that observation, which I thought was a very good one. Yeah.
I was thinking about writing a story that takes place in one of those levels. So you get a look at the people on Europa as the battle's going on, or after the battle. Like somebody who's not an important military leader, somebody who doesn't have any contact with the Europan through psychic or sign language means, just a regular Joe who's probably going to die. So.
It does go badly for the humans ultimately, unfortunately. That doesn't mean that everybody has to die. They could escape, or continue to live in hiding, or be left with an ambiguous end. But I think that would be a kind of a nice counterpoint. We've identified sort of the crucial events in some of the other stories, and maybe the kind of human impact of those events explored through someone who was not one of the key players. What happens to the everyday Joe when this breaks out, I think could be very interesting.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I can see that kind of dovetailing with some of the other things that I've read of yours in terms of sort of the human content. Very, very realistic. All right, so a promising start. And then the piece that Eugene sent me was really very Cthulhian. This dark creature with 100 mouths living in the undersea ocean, and very sort of nightmare creature rising up. And I really liked it, but it was really the kind of moment when I understood what I had said about the stories being their own vision of the rise of the Europan, and he's not at all painting a pretty picture of the Europan. He's painting a very nightmarish, which, if you think about humans who felt pretty comfortable and happy living on the undersea of Europa, and then one day murderous sea monsters began killing them, they would probably be more likely to compare it to Cthulhu than, buttercups and tulips, I suppose. So I don't actually know much about the plot. The piece that I got was sort of the introductory piece, and didn't really badly. I'm sorry, Damien, I missed the context for that.
It would go really bad for humans.
Yeah, really badly.
Like really badly.
Yes. So he's painting a very sort of nightmare, and sort of my assumption is that I, or maybe Tracy, but I'll bet it ends up being me, writes a little bit of an introduction so that readers coming in know that what they're looking at is a single event, sort of as if we'd asked 4 or 5 different movie directors to direct a movie about a given event. We'd get 4 or 5 really, really different movies, and so we'll have a little bit of text in the beginning to sort of link that together. But I'm not sure. I think that Eugene's story probably hangs out close to Dawn's, because we're going to have this start of the trouble, and so maybe Dawn's ends up being first, and then Eugene's, and then we get into either Kitty or Damien talking about the combat, and then Tracy ends up writing sort of the postscript that's
I bring up the rear.
Yeah, after it's all over, and the Europan has now moved out into the larger galaxy. So that's the structure I see. 5 interesting stories, very diverse stories, and I think 5 stories with a lot of promise. How do you guys feel about the project, about the stories, about each other, about my hairstyle, about anything?
I think it's kind of neat that us not really having talked to one another have actually picked a different time.
Yeah.
In the rise of the Europan, we've picked our own different time, and that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
I think so. one thing that I would like to do, and this has to do with my belief about the way that Dryden should work. I would really like to have you guys looking at each other's writing and working together, sort of on a I don't know what you'd call it, a buddy system or a cross email. Would people be willing to do that if I encouraged everybody to post their emails in the group chat and work back and forth? Would you all be comfortable doing that?
Oh
I'm
yeah,
fine
totally.
with it.
Okay. Don, how do you feel? You think that'd be
Yeah.
a good idea?
Should we post our emails in the group chat so everyone's got everyone else's email?
Does that sound promising, enjoyable? There's Tracy. Tracy's on board.
Fairly easy though, because everyone, if they have Dryden House, should have my email. So
That's true. That's true.
yeah.
And then I'll play as much editor as I need to, or as little editor. If you guys get in there and you're really working well together, and you're enjoying each other's company, and you want to send me a sort of a finished version and say, go print this and stay out of our lives, and that's what I'll do. And if you guys don't end up communicating a lot and I need to kind of come in and go, hey, Don, here's where we are on this story and here's what I feel like we're going to need to finish it, then I'll do that. But I really believe in the power of people working together. I mean, it's built right into the foundation of how I did this. And if the 4, hopefully 5 of you get together and chat and say, okay, Joel, we're done, I'm going to really, really be very happy. And I don't at all feel the kind of need to say, no, the story was supposed to say this, it can't say that. That's just not the way Dryden works. You all are familiar with the universe, and we've had, I think, a conversation here kind of about the structure that the story functions within. And I might come to somebody and say, well, your description of the framing drive is a little unlike the description in the rest of the universe, but I wouldn't come in and say, no, this story means X and you've made it mean Y. That's not the way we work.
Yeah.
And I'm running out of things to say. Somebody else say something exciting and interesting about this project.
I think it's kind of neat.
Go ahead, Don.
I was thinking if anyone else does come in, there is one angle that I think could be needs to be filled in that isn't addressed yet, which is the attack on Earth.
Yes.
There's also the Europan's point of view.
Yeah, I think that in some ways Eugene is sort of telling it from the Europan's point of view, but it would be interesting if we had somebody else come along to introduce the idea. I'm going to make a couple of notes here. So the attack on Earth. On Earth and Europan's point of view. And you were going to say something else, Tracy?
I mean, you kind of get the Europan's point of view from Dawn's story because of the communication with the pet. And you kind of get the Europan's point of view from my story because of the communication with Sadie, but it's still not the Europan's point of view. You're still getting it filtered.
Yep. You're absolutely right. All right. Damien, how you doing? Good. All right. Very good. Well, let's do this then. Let's plan to have a check back in a week. And we can do a hangout like this again, or Skype. Maybe we'll try to intentionally find a method of communication that Damien's going to be able to participate fully with. But we can continue that conversation over email or Facebook chat over the course of the next week. And at that point, let's sort of have made it a goal for everybody to have talked at least once. and just kind of have a sense, are you guys going to be sort of self-governing, or am I going to still be in there? But let's give it a week to talk and mature, and let people think about what they're doing and look at each other's writing samples. And then when we come back in a week, we'll sort of have a better feeling of how this unit is going to function. And like I said, I'm here to edit. I'm free to edit. I love to edit. But if you guys end up kind of being self-regulating, I'm just going to stay out of it and let you blow me away, because that's what happens every time Dryden starts to work. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, no problem, Damien. Don't worry about it. I don't know if you guys have seen what's started happening in Dryden Steam, but this woman, Maike in Germany, I approached her about one image that I liked, and she went and looked at the videos and went and found herself an author there in Germany, and they're off. And
it's just beautiful.
It's just amazing. Yeah, we've had a second piece of art out of her, and I haven't heard from her author friend at all yet, but that's the first week. Just awesome. Suddenly our steampunk universe is happening in German. All right, well, welcome to Dryden.
I'll be in Germany in a couple weeks. Maybe we can meet up, have a live-action German Dryden thing.
Oh, that would be badass.
That's cool.
We need to figure out where she is. I know that she's in the Berlin time zone, but I don't actually know what city she's in.
Okay, I'm going to be in Berlin, Frankfurt, and Erfurt, so I'll probably find them.
I used to live not too far from Frankfurt.
Oh, cool.
You're just a jet setter, Kitty. We're not used to you jetting around the world, sipping in champagne in the first class section kind of folks. You'll have to forgive us. But I will seriously let Maike know that you're going to be in Germany, and who knows, maybe she's actually in Berlin or somewhere where you guys could meet. That's wonderful. That kind of stuff just trips me out.
She should be on the Hangout, on the weekly edition Hangout.
On Friday.
Yeah.
So if you're planning on being there, Kitty, we maybe get you guys directly in contact that way. I can send you that link if you don't have it.
Okay, I might. I don't know. I haven't checked email today. So.
Right on. I posted it on the author and artist page also.
Okay,
so.
yeah, I haven't been on there today either.
No worries. You've been busy trying to salvage your basement. So, all right. Well, so I think that we're kind of coming to the end of this conversation. I want to make sure that I've answered any questions that are out there, and that everybody knows that I am available to chat, to talk, to exchange emails. Dryden depends on over-communication, so never think, I pester Joel 73 times a day. Well, Tracy might sometimes need to think that, but everybody else...
Hey, I don't pester you a whole lot.
No, as a matter of fact, I worry if it goes too long and I haven't heard from you. I'm like, uh-oh. Am I supposed to be doing something? Is she somewhere and I don't know it? Have I done something wrong?
So then I get a message. So, what are we doing today?
That's right. I tell people all the time, and I'm not kidding, that I do whatever the voices in Tracy's head tell me to do. It's the only way I survive. So, any questions, any concerns? Anybody want to talk about why goldfish are so expensive and then just die 24 hours later?
My son eats them.
Well, that would be why they die. All right. Hearing no. Let's see. Thanks for setting this up. It was good to hear from everyone and see what's happening so far. Damien, that's awesome. Do you have the one person who didn't put their email up here is me?
I was going to write a mass email to everybody and CC everyone, so awesome. Everybody can see all the emails that are involved. So I was going to also include an email to Eugene. That way he's aware that we're going to all be emailing one another, and that way awesome. The CC has everyone on there.
And I'll send Eugene the link to this Hangout after we're done so that he can come back and watch it later if he wants to.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Well, the Dryden experiment, when it's just me, is just this bright idea. And when the Dryden experiment actually kicks holy ass, which it does, is when really talented and fabulous people like you get involved. So please just know that I posted on Facebook yesterday that my life is cooler than movies. I don't watch movies anymore because I'm always screwing around with Dryden, and that's absolutely because of the fabulous people. I rented 2 movies the other day and took them home 5 days later because I had never watched them. But it's because of the absolutely fabulous people that I work with just every day. You are the power of Dryden. You're what makes Dryden cool. So thank you very much for participating in this project with me, and I'm really excited going forward to see some really awesome things come out of it. Dawn, I'd kind of like to check in with you about the 3rd of July. Do you want to just stick around for a minute after I stop broadcasting and we can just kind of touch base?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you very much. If you want to stick around in here, Dawn is going to be running a booth for Salmon Days on the 3rd of July with Dryden Materials, and we're going to have a little chat about that. So if you wanted to hang around and hear that conversation, that would be awesome. But I'm going to turn off the broadcast because we are done talking about Rise of the Europan.
Yay.
Yay. All right. Thanks, everybody. And here the broadcast is turning off.